And also welcome to the second in series of the meetup on sustainable agriculture 2050 prospects and roadmap. As you know, sustainable agriculture is a study of the way of farming that relates to how we are able to interpret and relate the resources so that we are able to have a very sustainable economy in the long run. So in this dimension, as we said in the first series, we have looked into three different ways on which we can model this. So if you remember, we were talking about the different ways that we can model the economy and why is it very important for us. So we will try to review this and look into the perspective dimensions. So first of all, let me just have the agenda for this meeting today. So we will be covering farming and natural resources, then we'll look into the economics, why it makes us to consider this topic very important, and then we look into the social issues, and finally we will have something on the international policy dimension that plays a very important role for the future development. To start with, farming and natural resources is the next green revolution urgently needed. As we know that the population of this world, which is right now at close to 7 billion, is likely to increase up to 12 billion by the end of 2050, and the global food production must increase by up to 70% to meet our needs. Keeping this in mind, are we able to increase the production of food, the average per capita availability in the same rate as the population is increasing? As we know that the population is increasing at the rate of close to 1.5%, but the average calorie intake is increasing by, the FAO estimates suggest that's increasing by 0.5%. So which is right now 1.8%, and which is slowly, that means that the population and the average calorie availability is somehow going to taper. So this makes us in a situation where the availability of food and the population growth is in a saturation stage by the end of 2050. What does this mean for the increase in productivity? So as we see that the growth in the productivity of most of the crops has to increase at a significant faster rate than the present growth rates in order to meet the increasing food demand. Coming to the average arable land and food supply, so this is in fact for developed countries, this is going down at a progressive rate, whereas in case of developing countries and the world, it is also increasing, but is somehow leading to stabilize in the long run. If you see the increase in yield of crops, we need to increase by about 60% to meet the demand. The current growth of yield will have a shortfall to meet the targets. So this is one of the critical issues. We need 60% more food, and for meeting these food demands, we need to have proper and efficient utilization of the available resources. If you consider animal sources of food, this is likely to increase, especially for the consumption of animal increases with the economic development. And so, as we see in the high income countries and the low and middle income countries, the demand for especially for poultry, pork, and milk is likely to increase at a significant growth rate till 2050, while in high income countries this is likely to stabilize. So the demand is mostly going to come from the developed countries. So the livestock demand, as we see in 2050, is mostly significantly will be growing in the East and Southeast Asia and South Asia, whereas in developed countries this will be almost stable because they have already reached the stable demands for the calorie intake. If you look into the energy demand and availability, the future discoveries is likely to stabilize by 2050. So that means most of we have to look into alternative sources of energy, and crop production is likely to meet up to 10% of the transport fuel will be coming from global crop production. So a lot of resources from crop will be transferring into the energy needs.